2027 general elections might seem far away, but not to political gladiators and observers in Nigeria. At the moment, the polity appears to be heating up with alignment and realignment of politicians, leading to what may be best described as a gale of defection. In the last weeks, the media space has been agog with reports on coalition believed to be strong enough to wrestle powers from the ruling All Progressives Congress APC. Anyway, who becomes what at the next polls in 2027 is the bane of this political movement, but how this impacts Nigerian democracy and the future is the center of our conversation today. My guest is the former Director General of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, I beg your pardon, and also the former Chief of Staff to Bauchi State Governor. He is most importantly a political analyst, Dr. Ladan Salihu. Welcome again to Leadership Dialogue Podcast on LJE Nigeria TV. I am Chikodinaka Didi. Well, it's good to have you join us, sir.
Thank you so very much, Chika. Good to see you. And I'm also the Publicity Secretary National of the League of Northern Democrats.
Also great. Good to have you again, sir.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Now, it's good you are the secretary, the publicity secretary of the Northern Democrats forum. So that brings me to my first question to you. How do you rate democracy in Nigeria?
Well, it's an excellent question and a very good kickoff point. Democracy in Nigeria, it's it's a mosaic of several points of interpretation and pontifications. You can look at it, from several perspectives, but democracy has been kind of parabolic in terms of, growth and development, our own political culture, our own political socialization, and the nuances and the practices of politics have not, in my opinion, gravitated or graduated to that level that, one can say in all sincerity that democracy has gained the kind of momentum our founding fathers, saw or conceived. I don't want to believe more than, 6 decades after independence, we are still not there yet as the Nigeria of our dreams that is full of opportunities and privileges and, that is there for everybody based on equity, equality, justice, fair play, and access to opportunities. Democracy has to be, like has been described or defined, government of the people, for the people, by the people. Today, what we see is not necessarily, a replication of that on the Nigerian political scene. It is a government literally seen to be of the people, not necessarily. It is not a government that you can celebrate and say it is a government by the people, not necessarily. It is not a government that you can say in all sincerity that it is there for the people and for democracy. When, the Americans or the British or the Indians, the largest democracy in the world, fashioned out their brands of democracy, they came up with a constitution that is the guiding principle, that is the working document that dictate, regulate, and define the code of conduct of politics, of a nation, and the way we must operate. What is strange about our own democracy is that we, unlike the Americans, unlike the British, unlike the Australians, and even closer home, South Africa, and Kenyans, we do not have a democracy, in all honesty, that respects the constitution, the document that that is that is the reference point of our modus operandi of running a nation. And in the course of this conversation, probably we'll expand the dialogue. But let me drop one point. If you look at the constitution and you look at the way, for instance, parties or elected officials, leave one party to join another, and the constitution is very clear on those who leave. Once you leave a political party, you lose your seat automatically. You are not supposed to be under party A, and then you win an election on the flag of that party, and then you cross carpet to another party and still retain your seat either in the state assembly, in or at the national assembly, and that is spelled out in the constitution. One would have expected that those who are superintending over the affairs of our country at the legislative level and at the judicial level when it comes to adjudication, once anybody decides to leave party A to party B, he forfeits his seat, and we'll expect that the pronouncements will be made and elections will be conducted or whatever to validate what the constitution says.
But Doctor, cross-carpeting is a norm with Nigerian politicians. And over the decades, we have seen politicians, cross-carpet from one political party to another with no consequence. So at what point and who is expected to entrench these policies?
The whole system has to, be put on a reset button. A reset button that respects the rule of law, that respects, constitutionality or constitutionalism, that upholds the principles and core values and practices of democracy. Once we are able to get that, then we will be seen to align ourselves with, the, global nations that practice democracy. Look, 250 million people after India, the United States, probably Indonesia. The next you're talking about in terms of population is Nigeria. But unfortunately, we've not been able to match our population with a popular, disposition to the norms, values, ethics, and ethos of democracy that are known worldwide. And until and unless we get there, we will continue to, just be either beating about the bush or to be pretentious about democracy or to just go half-house. And that is why you find our politics, it's not sufficiently addressing the core issues that define Nigeria, the issues of health, the issues of education, the issues of poverty, today, the issues of insecurity. And these are, to me, the points of conversation that the Nigerian state, the politicians, everybody should be concerned. But what are we more concerned about? We're concerned about the bloated egos and aspirations of individuals instead of, looking at the issues that either bind us together, unite us together, or are likely to propel the nation going forward into greatness. Look, Nigeria will survive and has survived from the time of the colonial masters to the time of independence, Zik, and Tafawa Balewa, to the time of, through military coups and counter coups. It has survived the Civil War. It has gone through the times of the, Shagari and the Kweme. It has had other coups, with Buhari and the rest of them. And now we are here. My disappointment and my worry, and I think it's the worry of most Nigerians, that after all these years, after this rendition of our own checkered history, of our own struggles, the travails, the sufferings, the agony that the nation has gone through over the decades, we've not been able to fashion out a roadmap to triumph. We are just locked up in sentiments, in primordial sentiments and attitudes. We literally do not look at the nation as the main issue. No, it is a rat race for people to grab political power. The conversations to me have been so disappointing that when you look at the Nigeria of today, and the kind of problems that are so endemic, contradictions, competition, subversion, and what have you. Nigerians are not talking about the issues. No, they are talking about who.
And the who has been the problem,
Yes.
especially since the commencement of the Fourth Republic. And at this point, it appears more Nigerian youths are tired. And given the situation of the economy as of today, Nigerians are seeking an alternative. So how do we get out of this quagmire?
First of all, let me say this to the youth especially, that onto every coin there are two sides. When it comes to the mechanism of power and change, the youth should be the catalysts in that direction. But the youth must first get it right. That politics is not just earned on, I love the social media, but it does not begin and ends on the social media platform. There's a need for the youth to engage physically, practically, in politics, to be able to say, when it comes to elections and we have candidates, on an election week, the youth should literally, close shop, monitor, insist on the voting process, and there must be youth, involvement in at the point of voting, at the point of counting, at the point of collation, and at the point of pronouncement. What we see, or what I've seen in the past, is that, the youth will cry, will coalesce into a movement. On an election day, once they vote, they disappear. And once they disappear, the hoodlums and the political vanguards and those who are paid off to do the bidding of their masters, the rig masters, take over.
Does that not epitomizes the level of fear inherent in the minds of these youths?
No, there cannot be fear when it comes to, the struggle for liberty and the struggle for freedom. We must know that there must be some sacrifice. Sacrifice that will catapult the nation eventually. It has its own benefits. If you don't sacrifice, it has its own setbacks. So the youth must be seen to participate and engage actively in deciding who rules this country. If they decide going forward that in 2027, These are our candidates at the local government, at the state level, at the national level, the presidency, and they tag them as their candidates. Then they must also follow through with a physical backup to those candidates so that they don't just go to sleep after voting. No, they must campaign for them. They must engage with the grassroots, which they are part of. They must get those people voted, and they should be by the ballot box, at the collation centers, at the INEC offices in states, and at the even national level. There's nothing wrong in the youths coming out peacefully in a very, very civil manner to say we will be at Eagle Square and line up all the way to INEC. But we have to make sure that results that are collated and sent to the headquarters are announced the way we collated them. And that's the way to go.
Doctor, if I may interject you at this point, when you talk about freedom and liberty, especially around the youths seeking for justice and seeking ownership of the electoral process and the nation as a whole, I'll take you to the 2020 End SARS protests. That's like a litmus test. That was a litmus test for not just the country as a whole, but then the youth. We saw the manner in which the youth came out in their thousands, protesting an end to police brutality. We saw also in August 2024 how the youth championed the End Bad Governance protest. But what did we see at the later end of these protests I have cited here? Was a brutal, confrontation from the government. Many of these youths had their flags with them, especially during the NSAS protest. But the soldiers, the Nigerian leaders, battled people without guns, with guns. How dare do we tell these youths that they still stand a chance of exercising their franchise and their civil rights?
The NSAS movements and the end bad governance movements. Let me begin with the NSAS. The NSAS, to me, may have been seen by many from just the perspective of the optics in Lagos. But on a national scale, the NSAS to me was successful in a way.
How?
It, first of all, moved into scale down the level of police and security brutality. The SARS itself as a unit was disbanded. It has also brought, into a kind of conversation the ways and the way in which the police or the security services, must conduct, their affairs. It has reduced, it has not eliminated those infractions. The end bad governance has also sent to me a warning signal to the powers that be that this may have happened on a very low scale. People have lost their lives. That if for any reason such situations allowed to happen again, it may not necessarily give Nigeria the same outcome. And so the security forces, the security services have been put on notice and on alert. I can assure you that when next, by way of our own shortcomings and our own attitude that are despicable to people who come out genuinely to have their voices heard, and people who come out deliberately to ensure that the nation is not shortchanged are now either gunned down brutally or treated in a manner that is so severely inhuman. The pendulum next time may not necessarily swing their way. So when you take these two into perspective, going forward, when and if there are infractions on the system that are clearly seen to infringe on the rights and civil liberties of our people, that seem to set aside the rules of engagement in politics and conduct of elections especially, that seem to jettison the known values of democracy and romanticize, greed and all issues that seem to demean democracy and demean the individual and demean the franchise of the people will not live with it again. I can assure you. So at the level of, when you do a kind of self-introspection of these two things, you may see it, some may see it as a setback. I see those two outtakes as the sparking plugs of the future of liberty in Nigeria. The two events have sent a clear warning to whoever is in charge in the coming years that such situations, when they do happen again, and I pray they don't, but when they do, there will be an ill wind that will blow nobody any.
But you envisage a likely recurrence of maybe a similar protest like the End Bad Governance protest in nearest future.
It's all within the legitimate rights of the citizen in a nation state to come out and protest, to come out and, let their voices be heard, and to insist that the rules that govern our own big ways of doing politics and our own ways of governing and governance and our own ways of preserving and upholding democratic principles and practices are preserved. We must make sure that, these are the issues. And I can assure you, it will not happen to the scale that we've noticed in the past. When it does, the security services are well aware that they will either not be in a position to handle the snowball effect, or they may not be in a position to do anything at all. And nobody wants that. Look, does violence pay? Have the Somalis benefited from any ring of violence? No. Does violence serve the purpose of governance in Sudan? Today, Sudan is literally, struggling to be back on the map. Will violence then help our country? And the answer is no. So it's now left for yes, it's now left for you, me, and the generality of Nigerians, especially the youths, to go back, like I started saying at the beginning of this program, to go back and engage, participate, entrench themselves at all levels of the democratic process. Voter registration and education, voting campaigns, and during elections, voting process. They must be seen to dominate literally, in a manner that their numbers count. The youths have what number in this country? The proportion 60%, more than 60%. So if you have more than 60%, for God's sake, you know the youth should dedicate 40% of that 60, and they are there. But what someone like me, see is the disappointing laissez-faire attitude that most youths have to politics. They just give it up.
Which is no fault of theirs.
Yes, no fault of theirs, but then power is not given on a platter of gold, my sister.
It's taken by
It's taken not necessarily by force. You earn it, you collect it.
So how will the youth of Nigeria end this power and, take over the politics?
First of all,
That is what we are here.
so yes, first of all, the youth should identify a political party. It can be Labour, it can be PDP, it can be, SDP. Let them identify a political party or a political movement, go in there in numbers, and be seen to be in preponderance that will not only be part and parcel of the decision-making process. No, they must also be seen to be part and parcel of the electioneering process. They must be candidates. They must be, in the executive committees. Let me give you an example. In my opinion, I don't believe that the youth should wake up one day unless there is a very, very overwhelming attitude to it. I don't believe that. We should wake up one day. You should wake up one day with the belief that they will vote in and get a presidential candidate to succeed at the first instance. My thought, and that's my opinion, is that you have 36 state governors. At the first instance, insist that 1/3 of the 36 governors must be people that are within the bracket of the youths. One of the 3 senators in every state must be a youth. One 1/3 of members of the House of Representatives in each state must be of the youth generation. If you do it 4 years on, then you take it to the next level and say, okay, 2 senators, 2/3 of members of House of Representatives, half of governors, half of chairmen of local governments. Then on the third attempt, it is for you to decide who rules Nigeria. But there is no strategic plan for the youths and their leadership that will take them through this kind of process, midwife the process, create that enabling environment through political education, political mentorship, political strategy, and what have you, that will now take the youth to that level. It is not in the interest of the youth, nay, the interest of the nation, that at the start of the gun, you have a youth as a leader at the very top. There will be a lot of attrition from down below because the old guards will still be there to undermine them. So when we are doing it for the nation state, when you are doing it for Nigeria, when you are doing it for the future, be strategic. Be extremely strategic and have a process. I think what is hampering this is the idea that when you go into politics today, tomorrow, you are a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
You get it? So right from money, some of these frameworks that our nation are not necessarily seen. But I hope the youths and their leadership will begin to take note that there is a process. Look, Atiku Abubakar, for instance, started this idea of presidency in 1998. Some of them were not born. And he was a governor, for instance, and elected governor in Adamawa. Then he came to the vice version and then was made a vice president. At the time we got to the convention in Johnson, I was there as a reporter of Voice of America. It was really that was on the cards, but the whole trajectory changed, and he was elected as a vice president. So there must be a strategic plan for the youth, and I hope the leadership of the youth that are watching this program will begin to probably expand on this option that I have put on the table. You get it, so that by the time you go the first 4 years, the next 4 years, you don't need to tell the old guards to ship out. They will ship out and they will
Absolutely.
take over.
Well, we'll go on a short break now, and when we return, the conversation continues. But remember that you can always be part of this conversation. All you need to do is like and subscribe on our YouTube channel at LJE Nigeria. We are also present on Instagram as well as Facebook. Be a part of this conversation. It's all about democracy in Nigeria. We'll be right back.
At LJE Nigeria, we are committed to ensuring justice, equality, and accountability. Reporting a violation helps us to protect rights and uphold transparency. In this short guide, we'll walk you through how to report a violation on our website. Simply start by visiting our website at www.ljenigeria.org. From the home page, locate the Report a Violation option in the main menu at the top. Once you're on the Report a Violation page, you'll be prompted to select the type of violation you are reporting. This helps us categorize your report for faster and more effective handling. Next, fill in your details. It is essential to provide accurate and clear information so that we can follow up effectively. Once you have completed the form, simply click Submit. You'll receive a confirmation message that your report has been successfully submitted. Your report will be reviewed by a dedicated team of experts, and will treat all reports with the utmost confidentiality and work diligently to ensure a thorough investigation. If you have any question or need assistance during the reporting process, please don't hesitate to reach out to us through our contact page. Together, we can make a difference. Visit www.ljenigeria.org to report any violation and join us in upholding justice and accountability.